Hey everyone, how you doing? Back again for another video. It's 6:05 in the morning. Just got in from work and I just wanted to make a quick video and just to talk a little bit about what's going on with me at the moment and really relay some thoughts that I've been having from watching a few videos. I mean, a lot of people say in order to stop gambling, you've just got to stop for one day at a time. Now, if my experience is that with gambling, you don't have, with a gambling addiction, from my personal experience, that you don't have the power to be able to stop yourself from gambling because you're addicted to it. And my understanding is that the addiction is an illness and the addiction is centered in the head, in the mind. And the gambling itself is just a symptom of something deeper that's going on within our thinking. So when people say just for the day, don't gamble, or one day at a time, some people can't do that. It's like saying to somebody, just don't do it. When you're in the grips of a gambling addiction, you can't not do it. I mean, there's a whole industry of counsellors trying to get us to stop gambling, or to realise that we can't gamble. But many of us realised a long time ago that we can't gamble and that we shouldn't gamble. But that didn't have the power, and doesn't have the power, if you're addicted to gambling, to stop you from doing it. Now, my experience is that I went through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. I put my family through a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, caused a lot of worry, a lot of carnage in the wake of my addiction, which is commonplace for many, whether they be addicted to gambling, whether they be addicted to alcohol or other substances. It leaves a trail of destruction there, and as well as the consequences that you experience yourself. So I mean, a gambling addict will have many experiences that were that left them feeling horrendous. I'm never going to do that again. I'm not going to do it again. And they believe that they're not going to do it again. I just won't gamble today. But they don't have the power to pull it off, because they've lost the power to choose whether they gamble or not. So it's very similar with alcoholism, and very similar with addiction, with substance addiction. The main the source of the problem is within the mind. You would think that all of that car crash, that train wreck, of consequences would have the power to stop us from going back time and time again to gambling, but it doesn't. And I can remember saying to myself, how bad's this got to get before I stop? This can't get any worse, surely. But it did. It kept on getting worse and worse and worse, because it's a progressive, as far as I'm concerned, it's a progressive disease that centers within the mind. And when you've lost control of that part of your mind which enables you to choose whether you're going to gamble again or whether you're not going to gamble again, you're pretty screwed, really. I mean, if you can choose not to do it, then great, good on you. But I know from my experience, I chose not to do it all the time. All the time I would make a decision not to gamble. But I would find myself gambling. And people would say, just when you feel like gambling, just think about all the bad that it's done. But I used to have selective memory. It would be like, whenever I went back to gambling, and I would never be able to recall all of that information with sufficient force to be able to stop me, to put in place to stop me from doing it. I might get a week. I might get 2 weeks. I might get a couple of days. But the thing with me is, it's like as a gambling addict, I never used to win. Now I know that might sound crazy. I did used to win, but I never used to stop because I couldn't. I couldn't stop until my bank account was emptied, and putting the last, either going to the cash point and the sign on the cash point coming up, insufficient funds. If I was in a real world gambling situation, or if I was gambling online, it would be bank declined, contact your bank for more information, would come up on the online casino that I was in. So that was the thing. It was like, whenever I started, it was just like nothing could pull me away. And I would start with this is the insanity of how I would start gambling after probably spending 2 weeks without food, without heating, many times without electricity. And the day before I was due to get paid from work, I would be like, right, and my determination to not gamble was massive. You have no idea how much willpower I've got. I've got a huge amount of willpower. The determination for me not to gamble was intense. I had all the evidence in front of me to say, you can't gamble, Mark. You cannot do this. do not gamble. Look at what it does. Every time you gamble all of your money. And you end off, like I say, with no food, no electricity, no heating as a result. And you end off contemplating suicide, praying to die. Yeah, literally on my hands and knees praying, please let me die. Please let me die because I can't do this anymore. And that's how it used to get for me. But when payday came around, all that information there, which should be powerful enough to stop me from doing it, wasn't available. Now, when I was 16, I got violently drunk on sherry. I was ill. I was really ill. I drank this bottle of sherry, and I was really sick. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. Never. I'm never drinking that stuff again. And I'm coming up close to 50 now. And guess what? I've never drank sherry since that last experience, because I can remember at all times with sufficient force, I am going nowhere near that alcoholic beverage. The smell of it, the thought of it, I get an instant reaction that tells me that is nasty and not for me. But when it comes to gambling, it's not there. So there's something going on within the mind. It's like I don't have the power to recall all of that information, to be able to put the barrier in place to stop me from starting to gamble, from starting again. So that was the real that's why we get so twisted with it, because we're constantly battling, trying to figure out how the hell to stop gambling. But if you're a gambling addict, it's a lot more complicated than just saying to yourself, right, I'm not going to do it, because you'll do it even if you don't want to do it. And you can have a huge build up of days, like strong, absolute gritted determination. I am not doing this again. And you can convince yourself that you've got the power to be able to do it. Yet when a certain time comes, something clicks in your head, and it's like you can't even remember the misery and pain and suffering and humiliation and desperation that you felt 6 hours ago, 7 hours ago, 1 hour ago. And it's baffling, man. It's baffling because with me, I was seeing that the actual gambling, the sites, the fruit machines, the online casinos, the walk-in amusements that we have, the slot machines, I was seeing them as the problem. But they're not the problem. They're just the outward manifestation of the problem, which is centered within the head. I don't know whether I'm making sense, but I mean, this is where I've come to This is the way I've come to understand it. Because if you don't know what's wrong with you, how are you going to find a solution? Well, and if you're thinking that gambling is the problem, but you can't stop yourself from doing it, and you recognise that the solution is not gambling, but you can't stop yourself from doing it, you're screwed. Really? I mean, if you can't stop yourself from doing something you do not want to do, what are you going to do? Think about it. If you can't stop yourself from doing something you do not want to do, you've got more than a problem. If you can stop yourself from gambling, then it's no longer a problem, is it? But if you can't stop yourself from doing it, that's an addiction. So there's two different things. There's gambling when it's a problem, and there's gambling when it's addiction. Addiction and problem are as far as I'm concerned, are two different things. Problems can be solved. Addictions, I know if something was to happen in my head and it would go, let's go, I would be off and running again. You know, addicted. I don't know where I'm going with this. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if we're understanding that it's a lack of power within our mind, that's the root of the problem. We've got to find some power from somewhere. If we are powerless or lacking in power to be able to recall all that information that we need in order to prevent and stop us from doing that very thing that we're desperate not to do, which in this case is gambling. I mean, if this is confusing, people, anybody who's a gambling addict will understand what I'm talking about, because it is baffling, and for years it had my head absolutely battered, you know, absolutely battered. Suicide attempts, just constantly obsessed with suicide. You have no fucking idea of the horror that I went through with gambling. If you're a gambling addict, you'll understand. You know what it's like. It is brutal. It is brutal. So where do we get power? Where do we get power from? Well, obviously, if we haven't got it, we've got to get it from somewhere. Someone. Something. You know, because continuously doing or being continuously unable to stop ourselves from going back to gambling time and 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 time again. That means, you know, we don't have the power to stop ourselves from doing it. mean, today I'm so grateful. I'm so lucky to be alive. And I forget how bad it was. Now, I'm years down the line now, but even at the time, when in the middle of all the horror and everything of active gambling addiction, I would still forget how bad it was. So like I say, I could go through, I mean, I've ended off contemplating suicide, planning on hanging myself, or I was found on top of a multi-storey car park, for God's sake, contemplating throwing myself off. I was thankfully found by the police and they stopped me from doing it. You would think that would be rock bottom, but the thing is, you know, there is no rock bottom apart from death. You know, that's why tens of thousands of gambling addicts end up paying the ultimate sacrifice, which is their life. They sacrifice their life to their disease, to their illness. Their illness convinces them that they're weak, so they kill themselves. You know, this is it. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. And doing these videos, I'm not trying to make people upset or anything like that, but in order to really find freedom from this, you have to understand what the problem is. You have to understand, is it a problem I've got, or is it an addiction? Things can get bad. I mean, I've watched a video tonight where somebody was saying, you know, if I was you, just get on your knees and pray. You know, I was watching a guy who was several years into recovery from gambling addiction, and you know, I would agree with him, absolutely 100%. You need power from somewhere, man. If lack of power is the root of the problem, how are you going to get power if you've got none over gambling? It's got to come from somewhere. And I know, I mean, the amount of times I was on my knees praying and begging for help. Begging. You know, please don't let me gamble tomorrow. Please don't let me do it. You know, but I did, because I didn't have any identification with anybody. I didn't understand that the only way I was going to be made whole again, or given power, given the power over gambling, was to really seek some help, because I couldn't do it on my own. I was incapable. yeah. It's not a particularly jolly and happy video, but what I'm trying to do is get people out there who are desperately trying to find something to relate to. If you share, I mean, we can all talk about like the times we wanted to commit suicide and all the money we lost and this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? But again, that's just an external symptom of this that's driving it. This way of thinking, this distorted way of thinking that we have no control of in our heads, that's driving the behaviour. The behaviour is being driven, and then the behaviour is creating the experiences that we all have as gambling addicts. So I guess learning what the problem is the first step to figuring out what the solution is. But it took me a long time. You know, and I understand how hopeless it is. I understand if you're still watching this, I'm 27 minutes in. I know this is a long video, but I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube, and you see all these influencers and promoting gambling and stuff like that, and it's wrong, man. It's wrong. Glamorizing gambling. For some, it's fun, but now we have gambling machines where, you know, you can $50,000 a spin. Christ, I thought I was bad at £100 a spin. You know what I mean? I thought I was bad doing that at times. But where we are today, the risks for people developing gambling addiction, and the absolute devastation that it can produce. Yeah, it's frightening. It's frightening. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I really don't. I'll just talk here about my experience, and if anybody's got anything useful out of what I've said, I mean, I'm gonna really talk a lot about this issue, about the way we think as compulsive gamblers, because it's really important. And I mean, it really is important. So if anybody has not benefited, but if anybody has identified a little bit with what I've said and thinks that it's been helpful, then that's great. That's the only reason I'm doing it. Because I remember searching the internet for hours and hours and hours, just trying to find somebody who could understand me, because I didn't understand myself. I didn't have a fucking clue what was going on, and nobody else did. I met a man. I met somebody a long time ago. Over about 14 years ago, and he sat down with me and started discussing all this stuff with me, and it made sense. What he was talking to me about made perfect sense to me. You know, he didn't say just don't do it. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna leave this here because this is a really long video, and it's 25 to 7 now. I work night shift, so I need to go and get some sleep. Recovery is possible. It's not purely hopeless. It's almost hopeless, but recovery is possible. You can recover from gambling addiction, and you can live fulfilling and productive lives. Today, I'm married. I have a loving family. I've got a job. I've got a mortgage. My own home. When I was gambling, I didn't have a pot to piss in. Like I said, I had no electricity, no food, no heating in winter, no friends, no self-respect, no dignity, and no hope. I've got all those things back today. But I'll leave this here, and hopefully see you again at some point in the future. Take care.